Hey, welcome in, everybody. This is Danny Mendez here on Tears to Wells. I want to thank you for joining me today. I look forward to Thursdays. I actually get pumped about preparing some stuff to share with you, and I hope wherever you're at today, you are feeling okay. I know here in the Indy area, I always talk about the weather, probably a little too much, but it's here in the Midwest. Whenever it's sunny, we just enjoy it and love it. So it is sunny here, and I'll take it a little cold, but that is fine. But wherever you're at, I hope you are having a wonderful day. This hard to believe, but this is episode 9 of Tears to Well. Tears to Wells. I'm just extremely happy with those that watch us live. We come on Thursdays. Every Thursday, we're on right at noon, and then I really appreciate those who go back and watch the videos. So really appreciate all of the support that you give us here on Tears to Wells. Well, today I'm going to be talking about how to deal with culture triggers. And I'm going to explain to you what I believe culture triggers are here in a minute. But triggers this year with grief, I've had a lot of them. One of the things that happens when you go through a season of grief like I have gone this year, it's hard to believe that we're coming up on a year since my beautiful, beloved wife has passed away, Karen. What a wonderful, wonderful, godly woman God gave me, and I just love her and miss her so much. But the past year has been spent grieving, and one of the things that you experience as you grieve are what we call triggers, and triggers basically can happen anywhere, anytime, and they're exactly what the word signifies. They trigger a memory, they trigger an emotion, a feeling. And this has happened to me quite a bit this year. One of the things that it has done is I could be at a Walmart, or I could be at a store. And one of the things that'll happen is I'll hear a song, and that song will jar a memory. It'll jar an emotion, and it's happened on more than one occasion. I'm at a Walmart or at a store, and I'll get a trigger, and before you know it, I'm crying in the aisle, or just kind of just in a different state of mind. Now it's gotten a lot better in the last few months, and I'm always glad when I get a happy trigger, when something I see. Yesterday, Landon was here at the house, and he put on a song, and he was doing this dance, and it was so funny, and it triggered a memory of my precious wife Karen. When she would do her little jigs in the house and little dances, and would just try to make me laugh, and so that was a good trigger. But needless, when you go through grief, you experience what is called triggers. Now, basically, triggers are a current experience, current experience that bring back negative thoughts and emotions of past experiences. I'm going to repeat that again. Triggers are a current experience that bring back negative thoughts and emotions of past experience. Now, they could also be positive ones. So, trigger is something that jars, but we're going to be focusing today on negative triggers, or things that trigger negative and past experiences, and so we're going to talk about that now. That may be what's happening right now in our culture on a grand scale. I think this is happening to many of us without even realizing it. We live, whatever you want to think about the modern society we live in, but we live in a society today that is driven by media, and is driven by social media. It's driven by the cable news and cable television. And so you have to go a long way before you can escape that. So a lot of us, to the same degree, are being given the same information, the same things to think about. And so without even realizing it, we can have mass amounts of people experiencing the same kind of emotions and so forth. And I think that's what's happening right now with our political climate. Doesn't make a difference who you're for. If you're for Donald Trump or Joe Biden, it seems like both people that in the realm of politics right now are feeling a little bit frustrated. One wants their candidate in, the other one wants their candidate to be reconsidered, or so forth. So there's these emotions that we're experiencing that could be potential triggers. Not just the political climate, and the political climate is definitely something that's weighing on all of us, and I think it is weighing on our mental health and so forth. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, how to resolve that, and how to help that today. But I think there's a second area that is causing some triggers, not just the political climate. That is, in my opinion, it's causing a lot of triggers, emotional triggers, and so forth. But I think also this COVID climate that we're in. Some people have been isolated for so long, and it continually is bringing up triggers. The media every day will put up the potential for new school closings, or new hospital closings, and so forth. And so we're going through all of these things with COVID, and then with politics, that are creating potentials for triggers. It's triggering emotions. And the point I'm trying to make here with this cultural triggers is, I think a lot of times what it's doing is it's current situations that are actually triggering emotions from the past, and it's getting us to go to bad places. One of the things that happens is, when we're triggered, these triggers that we're experiencing can lead us to feel one of two things. The first one is, it can lead us to feel helpless. And that's what a lot of us are experiencing right now. A lot of us we have a certain maybe opinion or a point of view of which way our country should go. And it seems like the media or our political opponents are going this way. And in many cases, we're feeling helpless. And what the situation is triggering feelings of helplessness. Maybe we're for the other candidate and we want the country to go in a different direction. And we're like, can't everybody see what's happening? Don't people see what's going on? And our will is not coming to fruition, and it has the potential for making us feel helpless. And it can trigger feelings of helplessness. A lot of times, and I'll be frank with you, a lot of times that's where my stuff comes from, my past, from my growing up. If you're a victim of any kind of physical abuse or verbal abuse, one of the things that the triggers do is take you back to that place of helplessness, that place where you were a child or a teenager and were being abused, and it just kept coming, and you couldn't control it. And oftentimes that's what triggers do. It takes us back to places of helplessness. And what helplessness does, it causes anxiety. And I don't know about you, but I can almost feel the level of anxiety among us and in the culture today is just on the rise. And a lot of that is by the potential triggers that are in the culture today, the things that we're looking on social media, the things that are coming up on our screen and so forth can have the potential to trigger us in bad ways. As I mentioned to you, helplessness leads to anxiety, right? But also there's a second thing that these triggers do. Not only does it make us feel helpless, but it puts us in a depressed mood. And that's really what helplessness does. It just makes you depressed. It feels like I can't change, I can't do anything, and it takes you into a place of lethargy, and so a depressed place. And so what triggers cause us to feel is, first of all, helplessness, which leads to anxiety, right? Which leads to a depressed mood. We feel depressed about the situation. We feel depressed about our country, about our own home, about not being able to go out, about not being able to have contact, and so forth. And then that leads to low energy. We become lethargic, which creates a vicious cycle. We feel even more helpless, which causes more anxiety, which causes us to be depressed and even more low energy. But I want to just talk to you today. In a minute, I'm going to give you a few things that I really believe will help you to combat the triggers of the culture today, the triggers that we're being triggered, and it's causing us to feel helpless, depressed. So I'm going to give you some things today that'll really help you on that. But before I do, I want to say this to kind of give us some perspective on this, is your mental health is more important than political outcomes. This morning I was reading in the book of Jeremiah, and it was interesting how God used just a wicked kingdom, a wicked king by the name of Nebuchadnezzar, to bring judgment on a nation, to bring judgment on a people. And I'm sure there was a lot of spiritual people in Israel that really felt, hey, we could do a lot better if we have a monarchy here that believes in God, and it's a royal kingdom that believes in God. And we don't need that Nebuchadnezzar, but God planned that Nebuchadnezzar to come in. And the point I'm making is this: we have very little control of the political structures of the world, and God's in control of that. We'll talk a little bit later about the sovereignty of God. But I want to tell you, friend, and me, friend, as I look into the camera today, our mental health is so much more important than political outcomes. My ability to function on a day-to-day basis is so much more important than who becomes president or who is in the Congress or who is in the Senate. Today, I have a little boy who's in school right now, and when he comes home from school, he needs a dad who is engaged, a dad who is ready to be there for his life. And so do you. You have a lot of people who are counting on you. You have children, you have students, you have in many cases, you have a flock of people that you pastor. Or no matter the situation, we've got to come back to the place where we realize our mental health is so much more important than a political outcome. So we ought to be focusing more on good mental health as opposed to being engaged with everything that's going on. Secondly, don't compare yourself to others. I've fought this all of my life, and I don't know. We'll talk in later episodes about PTSD and complex PTSD. We'll talk about all these things, but it seems like a running thread through all of these is the tendency to compare ourselves to other people on a frequent basis. And I do that quite a bit. I really do compare myself to others. And one of the most difficult things is I go to a Facebook page and I see a person who is constantly commenting on politics. And I think, well, I should be able to do that too. I should be able to comment on politics and then just leave my Facebook page and go on about my business and then not go with me. But I can't do that. If I get too involved in politics, if I get too involved with what's going on with the COVID, if I get too engaged, it just stays with me all day long and it doesn't go away and it puts me in a bad place. And that might be you. You might be frustrated because you see people that talk on, seems like they're always talking about the politics, always talking about the situation, and they're able to do that. Well, some people can, I guess. But I've had to come to a place where I've just realized I can't. And so I just want to challenge you to realize that. So in the time that we have left today on the podcast, I want to give you, I think I've written down about six things that will really help you when it comes to beating the triggers. Whenever we get triggered by something we see, a political ad that comes on that just triggers something, and it triggers an emotion. Whenever we see a comment on a Facebook page that just triggers us, and it just doesn't lead to the normal just, getting upset and letting it go. It actually leads us to a physical place of depression, of anxiety, and so forth. What can we do? So let me give you 6 tools today, or 6 things. Now, we talked a little bit last week about depression and some things to deal with depression. Some of this will kind of overlap, but I think this really will help you, especially if you're kind of feeling overwhelmed right now. I'm just, my hand is up. Within the last couple of weeks, I've felt a little bit depressed about what's going on and so forth. And so if I'm feeling it, I said to myself, certainly there's probably other people feeling it. So I'll talk about that. So let's go with 6 things that'll help you today in combating the triggers that are coming from us through our culture. The first one is awareness. This is a kind of synonymous thread that goes through a lot of the talks I give. Awareness. I think all the time with any problem we have, if we can be simply aware of some of the underlying issues, we can have a better outcome. But I think if we're just aware that I'm being triggered, but it's really not about this situation. It may be taking me back to places in my life where I was extremely helpless and out of control. And maybe stuff that I still haven't dealt with from my childhood and from my adolescence, from my college years. And all of those feelings of helplessness are coming up here. I think just simply being aware that it's not this situation that's causing these feelings. It's just maybe a trigger that's coming from my past. This situation or the circumstances is taking me back to a bad place in my life. And that's what happens many times with me. I'm getting really, really upset about a situation. I have to be honest. I have to tell myself, this isn't really about this situation. This is taking me back to a place in my life where I had very little control and I was being taken advantage of and I was being used. And those same feelings are coming back, and I'm really bringing a lot of that stuff back into this situation. And I think just being aware of that. I think right now, as we're going through this political climate, I think it's good to just stay aware and stay engaged in that. Secondly, there's a second tool to helping us cope with the triggers that are coming our way. The first one was awareness. The second one is writing, a journal. And one of the things that journaling does it helps get the junk out. And I think I may have mentioned this before. Again, that's why a lot of these are redundant and overlapping, but it is a really good technique. Right now, if you're just feeling just angry and you can't pinpoint where the anger is coming from, and then and as you start to journal, you'll figure out that it's coming from the messages we're seeing on television, the messages we're seeing in our social media feeds, and so forth. But journaling is so good. It helps get the junk out. I don't know how many times I have literally been in a bad place, a little anxious, a little overwhelmed, a little blue, and I'll just get my journal out. I think I've got actually one right here, close by. I do. This is my journal right here. But I'll just pull out that journal and just write out my feelings. Not even necessarily what I'm thinking, what's causing them, but my feelings. And it seems that it's not too long after I start writing them down, I just start to feel a lot better. And as I'm getting that junk out. And not just does it help us get the junk out, but it helps us to process what we're thinking. And it actually helps us to connect those dots. Remember, I told you that sometimes it's not the situation that's causing that extreme anxiety, that extreme depression. It really is simply a trigger that's taking us back to a bad place. Well, sometimes journaling helps you to connect those dots. It also helps you to visualize the situation. So journaling is really, really, really good. So we talked about awareness, talked about journaling. There's a third step to combating the triggers. Have you been triggered? Are you feeling a little bit depressed right now? Are you feeling a little bit blue right now, a little bit overwhelmed? There's a third tool that you have in your box whenever you're triggered, and that's talk. And again, this is why it's so important to build networks in our life of people that we can talk to. I hope you have somebody you can talk to. I surely do. And we build those networks in advance. And maybe right now you're going through a little bit of funk and there's no one there. A little side note or mental note you need to jot down is when I pull out of this, I'm going to work really hard at building a good network of people that I can talk to. I just want to say I'm thankful for those of you that are in my network that I can talk to. Whenever I become anxious, overwhelmed, whenever I become angry, depressed, I want to thank God. I want to thank those that are watching, that are part of my network, that I can call them and that I can just talk to them. But when we talk about the feeling, not necessarily the situation. This is what helps us see. What happens if you talk about the situation, it's just going to get you more upset. If I'm talking about the politics, if I got to call somebody and talk about this political race, and I get on the phone and I start talking about the political race, it's just going to take me deeper and more angry and more depressed and more anxious. Don't talk about the situation. Talk about the feeling. Call somebody and tell them, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling depressed. And let that stuff out, because it gets the junk out. But not only that, it helps you get reconnected. And reconnecting helps us in our life. There's a fourth tool. All right. So we talked about three already. We talked about awareness. We talked about writing, journaling. Talked about the third tool, talking. Talking to somebody. The fourth tool, and this one's so practical. You're going to be like, I can't even believe this guy's even talking about this. But sleeping and resting. When we're triggered, and those triggers bring on the feelings of anxiety, anger, depression, bad mood, it tells us we need to rest. We need to rest. I want to mention this. Work hard to get your sleep back under control. Right now, during the time that we're living, especially, we've got to have a handle on how well we're resting. I was watching a podcast the other day of a very, very famous person who was talking about their health regimen. And I'm talking about this person is in great shape. I mean, looks great, has a radiance about them. But one of the things that this man kept saying over and over again, he goes, I really guard my sleep. He goes, I get 8 hours of sleep a night. I really, really guard that. And I want to mention that to you. Really work at getting the sleep back under control. When we're not rested, when we feel tired, triggers take over. It doesn't take very much to trigger us, and we can be in a funk real fast. So work hard at getting your sleep under control. A couple things I do. I'm just kind of throwing these out there for you. I have some teas that I drink. Some chamomile and different herbal teas that I drink to help me get some sleep. Magnesium is a supplement that helps you get to sleep, but really you can research this, get online, Google it, some herbs and supplements that help you get better, better sleep. Also, you've heard this from 10 different sources: no electronics and no video games. But I want to mention this as far as resting too. Give your media consumption a rest. I'll just want to state it this way: limit your media consumption to less than 1 hour a day at your peak point of the day. Here's what I've done here recently to help myself, because again, I struggle with this. I can be triggered. Because of what's going on, I allow myself about an hour to an hour and a half a day of consumption of news, what's going on, and I always do it in the middle of the day when I feel my best, when my spirit can handle it and I can handle what's going on. Again, that's about it. But there's some of us that are consuming 5, 6, 7 hours of media coverage, social media coverage about what's going on. And what it's doing, it's weakening our resolve, because rest and resting from media consumption helps you fight off triggers. The Bible actually puts it this way. The Bible talks about bringing all of our thoughts into captivity. And it gives the idea of our thoughts being like prisoners trying to escape a jail or trying to get out. And the Bible gives the word picture of somebody grabbing those and bringing those thoughts back under control, bringing them into captivity. Well, it takes a lot of strength. And if we're not rested, we won't be able to do that. The fifth thing, and we talked a little bit about this week, how to fight off triggers, especially culture triggers, is nutrition and exercise. And that kind of goes with rest. Nutrition, we talked about this last week: low sugar, low carb, and then resistance training, weights. And what nutrition and exercise do is help get that strength back in you, also helps with your dopamine levels, and it just makes you feel good. There's a good friend of mine. She's out there and has helped me with some nutritional issues here recently. And a couple times a day, I'm drinking a vegan shake that's just plant-based and just helps me with nutrition. And like any weak person, I thought to myself, well, I could just cheat here and have a little piece of bread or a little some kind of a sweet thing. But it's amazing how in 2 or 3 days of doing these vegan smoothies, just was feeling so much better. And literally within minutes of eating some type of sugar, processed food, literally started to get the blue streak back going again. So I just want to warn you, be careful. Our nutrition and exercise regimens will help us and give us the strength to fight off these triggers. And then finally, the last thing that's in our toolbox of fighting our triggers, and that's the sovereignty of God. Obviously, we could have put that first, but I want to leave you with that thought today. God tells us in Matthew chapter 10, verses 29 and 31, it says, "Are not 2 sparrows sold for a farthing?" In other words, he said sparrows are so cheap. In those days, they were literally a dime a dozen. He said they are so cheap, and one of them shall not fall to the ground without your Father, and basically implying taking note. In other words, God sees when even the smallest little sparrow falls from a tree. He says, "Fear ye not, therefore, ye are of more value than many sparrows." In other words, God is involved in even the very least person on the earth. God knows what's going on. He's in control. And when we're starting to feel that anxiety come on, when we're starting to feel that depression come on, when we're starting to feel our life spin out of control, that is a good time to just stop and remind ourselves of the sovereignty of God. Are you right now finding yourself in a dark place because of the election? And you're saying to yourself, our country is going to go, and hey, can I just remind you, God is sovereign. We can do all that we can do. We vote, we advocate, we do all that we can do, and then as Christians, we lay it in the hands of the Lord, and we just trust the sovereignty of God, and it just helps us keep from being anxious, and it helps to keep us from being depressed, and it helps keep the triggers from sneaking up on us and triggering these thoughts. The sovereignty of God. We live in crazy times, and you're going to get triggered. Today, you're going to see something. You're going to walk into a store, and the sign for the mask is going to remind you we're still under these COVID things, and it's going to bring triggers in your life. Today you're going to be sitting down for dinner, and maybe, the nightly news comes on and says something, wrong, or what you perceive to be wrong about your political candidate. And we're in the potential for triggers. And so I just want to give you today these 6 things to help us realize that when our triggers come and we find ourselves going to a bad place, we find ourselves going into a feeling of helplessness. Oh, the world is falling. There's nothing I can do about it. Or we find ourselves going to a place of depression, just so tired and feeling like, what in the world? I can't, life is not even worth anything. Hey, there's these 6 things we can do. And I'll go through these real quick again. I mentioned to you, have an awareness that this trigger is not about this situation. It's taking me back to other places in my life where I've been helpless or I was hurt. Secondly, write out your thoughts, write out what's going on. It'll help you process it. Talk. Get on the phone with somebody that you trust. Get on the phone with somebody you love. Talk out those feelings of anxiety, those feelings of depression. Get back to a good place. Sleep and rest. Get the sleep back under control. Don't stay up late watching cable news. Take care of your body. And then that leads me to number 5, nutrition and exercise. Get back in a steady regimen of that. And then 6thly, get back to realizing God is in control, the sovereignty of God. These are 6 things that we can do that when we are triggered. Have you been triggered? I've been triggered. And I know I'll go back and read some of your comments and I will be triggered again. But I will take these 6 things that I did, that I wrote out, and I will feel better today. Well, I really hope you enjoyed today's podcast. As I mentioned, I love putting these together. I love the fact that I can take my tears from my past and I can make them a well. And hopefully you drank today from my well. And that's what this podcast is all about. Who passing through the valley of Baca, valley of tears, make it a well. If you like this video, can you do me a favor? I know a lot of you comment, but if you like this video, hit the like button and share it with a friend, maybe somebody who you feel is maybe going through a little bit of a dark place right now. Share that with them. If you'll click on the follow button, every time one of these videos is released, you'll get a notification and it'll tell you that I'm live or that a video has been released. But I want to thank you for tuning in today on Tears to Wells, and we'll see you right back here next Thursday, 12 o'clock, for another episode. I think next week we have a special guest. I think next week a friend from overseas is going to be joining with me and talking about his journey dealing with depression. We've been on that track here for the last couple of weeks. It'll be the last one we do. I know sometimes they can be a little bit dark and we don't want to go there. But God bless you. We'll see you next week. Any prayer requests you have, drop them in the comments or send me a message and I'll make sure to pray with you. But until that next week, this is Danny Mendez, Tears to Well, episode 9. God bless you.